ending of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So at this point, I appreciate you guys clicking on this video. We have already broken down the most of the film, and now we're kind of getting into the ending of this film, how it all wrapped up, who lived, who died, and we'll transition into the post-credit scene. So now we're at the end of the film, make their way to the ship. We have, Rocket's now been revived, and I'm so happy he was back with the crew because I was missing him throughout the film. We have Rocket, Peter, Gamora, Groot are now going to save Nebula and Drax and Mantis. So they're on the ship. The High Evolutionary sends them in this pit, which we get the return of those creatures. Obelisk, if I'm not mistaken, was the name of the creatures. They are in the pit with them, and then this is where Mantis, she really stepped up in this movie for me. This is where she touches them, and they only eat batteries. They don't eat humans. They're probably scared of them more than they're scared of the creatures. So they're able to control them and ride them to where the rest of the Guardians are. And now they're like, okay, we about to leave. But this is where the Guardians, and I believe it was the Beastie Boys that play at this point. We get another slow-mo shot of all of them together. Again, one of the things that I wish was more prominent in this film was the Guardians together, right? Because it took us almost 2 hours to get them finally together, but they're finally together and they're now ready to go to war. So Drax opens up the door. We see all the High Evolutionaries guards coming in this scene here. There's obviously so many moments in the MCU of group shots, right? You can think of the first Avengers with our Avengers teaming up and fighting in New York. You can look at the Avengers 2 with them fighting against Ultron. And there's so many other, and the Guardians has their own, the first Guardians they're fighting. Always these moments of the groups coming together. Man, this might be one of my favorites, y'all. When we see them in the hallway, all of them using their powers, their skill sets. Obviously Peter has his guns. He sets off the bombs, electrocutes people. Gamora is slicing and dicing through people. Talked about it in my full breakdown. Nebula and that T-1000 arm is just ripping through people and doing her thing. She gets her head knocked off and she's still shooting people. Rocket, my man, with his guns flying through comic books, frame this so many perfect shots. Groot rips through someone. We see so many different variations of Groot in this film with Kaiju Groot, and we'll talk about Alpha Groot a little bit later, but he's doing his thing. Drax doing his thing. Mantis doing her thing. I love that hallway scene. It is just so perfect. Let me know what you all thought about that in the comments. But the Guardians are now saving these kids. And actually, prior to them saving the kids, there's a really good scene here of not just Drax the Destroyer, who I was so glad that we got the return of the beast mode Drax, but we see Drax the dad. The kids that are been captured and been experimented on by the High Evolutionary are scared and nervous. They see Nebula and she's yelling at them. They're getting nervous and scared, but Drax calms them down and does his little boop, 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 his robot monkey dance, which I'm not going to lie, it was kind of goofy the first time I saw it, but I really appreciated seeing it on the second time because it shows you the layers of Drax. He is a destroyer. He is goofy. He could be stupid, but he's also a carer and a protector. So I really enjoyed that scene there. So the kids, they back off from the wall. They blow out the door. Meanwhile, at this point, Kraglin and Cosmo the Space Star were kind of I don't want to say forgotten about, but they weren't as important to the movie until now. Peter calls them, we need your help, Kraglin. He gets nowhere, gets the head, and, brings the ship to them so they can bring all the children and obviously the rest of the Guardians. And what we'll talk about here, a Noah's Ark moment with all the animals coming up to the ship. We see that this is how they get involved. And meanwhile, the High Evolutionary is on his high horse. He's like, get Rocket 891, 89, 139, 219. Get him by any means possible. Send out all of our fire like Thanos in Endgame. Send all of our troops to take them out and get this done. Meanwhile, his second in command scientist is like, dude, you have lost your marbles. You are wrecking everything that we have built over these years. She takes over, but she doesn't because the High Evolutionary just kills them and wipes them all out, sends everyone to the corridors, and that's where we get, I mentioned that fight sequence. So meanwhile, again, at this point, the Guardians have taken out everyone. They got the kids. This is where we get another emotional moment. Really emotional moment where Rocket was into Hatch 89, or at least where he was kept. Sees these adorable baby raccoons, which was once himself. And we actually get the origins of where Rocket comes from. He's North America, and he finally, everyone's calling him a trash panda, a raccoon, a squirrel, but he finally finds out that he is an actual raccoon. He takes all the baby raccoons and puts it on himself. Dude, my heart, I love that moment. Unfortunately, Mr. High Evolutionary comes, uses his power, throws Rocket up against the wall, talking his stuff. You're an abomination. This, that, and the third. I just want your brain and all this stuff. I'm going to kill all your friends. And Rocket, which was a callback earlier in the film. You guys remember at the beginning of the movie when Rocket was climbing on the ceiling when he was talking to Nebula about Peter and talking to Peter and getting him out of his feelings. She's like, why are you climbing on the ceiling? Oh, I'm just testing out these new shoes to, defy gravity or whatever. That's how he was able to get himself in the wall, because that was his genius experiment to, interfere with gravity. He gets off the wall, shoots the High Evolutionary. I was so prepared for this moment because I wanted him to get his ass beat the whole damn film with all the stuff he did to those animals, to Rocket's friends, to just experimentations that he's been doing and killing off all these species and races. I was happy for this moment. Rocket shoots him, Groot knocking him in, Nebula knocking him in, Peter shooting him, Mantis, everyone's getting their licks, man. My man got stomped down, but then he gets the killer blow by Gamora. So he's now on the ground. His face comes off, and we see the result of what Rocket did when he scratched off his face. And Rocket has a chance to kill him then and there. He doesn't do it because he's a guardian of the freaking galaxy. Question is, I come from that old school. If I don't see a body, they're still alive. We don't see him die. So question I have for you guys in the comments, is the High Evolutionary still alive? Did he manage to get on this spare ship and go off into space and regroup and maybe come back in the future? No, I don't think he's dead. If you don't see a body, he's not dead. Okay. So let me know if you guys think he died on that ship. But as this happened, meanwhile, again, the uses of Adam Warlock, he's kind of in and out of the film, very much just a setup for the future of the character. But he's now on the ship, comes back all angry at Groot, and he falls out because he's been through the ringer at this point in the film. But Groot ended up helping him, and he wakes up and says, why did you do this? I've been trying to kill you the whole movie. And I am Groot. And it translates to Drax says, everyone deserves a second chance, which I don't think was an accidental line. I think that has to do with James Gunn being fired, being brought back and hired to do and finish his trilogy. I don't know. I might be stretching there, but everyone deserves a second chance, which is, I believe in that mantra as well. Second chance was given to Adam Warlock. Remember that, because Adam Warlock helps them out a little bit later. They're getting everyone off the ship, and Rocket tells them we need to bring everyone with us, not just the children, but everyone, all the animals. It's been experimented on. So we see all the animals coming onto the ship and going to nowhere. This is where everyone jumps off. Peter, I'm like, Peter, come on, man. He drops his Zoom player. Obviously, we know the significance of it because it's from his mom. He drops it. He goes back. And as I talked about in the breakdown, there was the fake out Drax death. There was the fake out Drax Nebula Mantis death. Obviously, there's the fake out death with Rocket. We get another fake out death. We have Peter. He's left behind. He doesn't make the jump. He thinks really quickly on his feet. He grabs one of the wires and holds it down so he can use the pressure to blow himself back into the ship. But unfortunately, with the gravity in the space, he gets caught. We see him in space, no oxygen. I don't know where his mask was, by the way. Where was Peter's mask that he's worn throughout the entirety of his MCU? I guess he didn't bring it this time around. He doesn't have his mask, and we see, I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting emotional because Mantis, Peter, and we see Groot start to cry Peter, and he rips his hands out there. He's going back to everyone deserves a second chance. This is where Adam Warlock proves that he is kind of a changed person. He saves Peter. I love that shot too. It was very visually stunning when he's saving him and going through space. Listen, when he gets to making his Superman movie, the flight sequences will be on point. Trust me. We see him talk about James Gunn. So he saves Peter, running jokes throughout the film. Does that look cool? Did that look cool? Did I look cool? Peter says that I look cool as he's coming back, and that's it in the film. They defeat the High Evolutionary. They save all the people on his ship in the experiments. They save all the animals. Rocket gets his revenge of a sense. He doesn't kill the person that created him. Instead, he gave him a chance to I think live or to be a better person. But we'll see what happens with the High Evolutionary moving forward. But now this is where the waterworks came down for me. So now the Guardians are finally back together. Gamora's going back with the Ravengers, and he has this moment with Gamora. She asks him when she goes back, and she says, I bet we were fun. He says, you would never believe how good they were together. But she goes with the Ravengers, and I assume, based on Zoe Saldaña's recent comments, that this, you pay people enough money to come back. But she doesn't need the money. She's been in some of the biggest films of all time, not only with the Guardians, but the Avengers movies. And of course, she has Avatar 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So she doesn't need the money. But if she has the urge to come back, who knows? But recent comments now, she says this is the last time she's going to play the character. She would want someone else to take on the role. We'll see. But we're assuming that she's off doing her thing with the Ravengers from now until whenever we see her again. And if they recast it, we'll see. So she's with them. They're back on nowhere. And this is where Peter goes back to the callback to earlier with Mantis and the metaphor joke that she told Drax to say to him, a lily pad and learning how to swim. Well, he's going to learn how to swim because he wants to go back to Earth to be reunited with his grandfather, where Peter's going to go off to. We'll talk about the post-credit scene. Speaking of Mantis, she wants to kind of do her own thing. She's been just from Ego and, helping the Guardians. She now wants to be her own person. Her and her 3 little pets, they're doing their thing. Drax wants to help her, which we'll talk about Drax. That got me so sad when he's waving and crying at her. That was so sad. He is like, oh, I'll go with you to protect you. He's like, I don't need your protection. He's like, no, not in that way. I just, I want to be there for you, like your big brother. He's like, no, Drax, I got it. Meanwhile, Nebula's like, no, Drax, I'm gonna need you here because we got these kids and we got this new, nowhere to take care of. And they're gonna be the protectors of Nowheres. Nebula and Drax are gonna protect Nowhere. Meanwhile, we need a new captain, ladies and gentlemen. And that is the one and only Rocket the Raccoon, baby. We all know he was really the captain the whole time. Peter, you know what I'm saying? But no, he's the new captain of the new Guardians. So before we get to the ending or the post-credit scenes, the film wraps up with the, everyone saying their goodbyes. And when Drax is waving at Mantis and getting emotional, we've never seen him cry. I don't think ever in the entire MCU. He's crying because he's saying goodbye to his little sister, say their goodbyes. Meanwhile, the new captain, Rocket Raccoon, plays Florence and the Machine. Dog Days Are Over. Perfect song to end out this chapter, to end out these characters going their ways and saying goodbye to the Guardians. They're dancing and Drax. That was a perfect ending, man. That was a very satisfying conclusion for these characters that I've loved since 2014. I didn't know much about the Guardians prior to that film, but to me, they are the perfect quintessential Marvel family to me. They're the MCU first family, if I'm being honest with you. They are the best family unit to me in the entire MCU. Yes, I love the Avengers, and they were a family unit, but we didn't really spend that much time with the set of the Avengers, different variations of the group. Obviously, we got the Ant-Man family, but, we got the Black Panther family, which I love, but there's really not much of a family left with that. Or lost all his family. So they, to me, are the most consistent family of the MCU. And I love them, man. And I thought it was just a perfect ending to wrap up this great trilogy. It's not my favorite trilogy. I'm going to probably make a separate video of ranking it, but it is up there, but it's not my favorite. But it's a great way to conclude these great stories. I thought James Gunn wrapped up this story perfectly. As I mentioned, it has its bumps and some things I maybe would have changed, like having Rocket more involved in the main narrative. But now, so that's the end of the film. Perfect way to wrap up the movie. But then this leads us to our not one, but 2 post-credit scenes. So mid-credit scene number 1 is the introduction of our new Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's go over that lineup. So our mid-credit scene is set up where we see our new Guardians on this planet protecting people against these like hyena type creatures. We have our Guardians led by Rocket Raccoon, of course. We have Kraglin. We have Cosmo the Space Dog. We have Adam Warlock. And we get the introduction to Alpha Groot, which was so cool to see. But then there's a new character that we're going to talk about here. And that character goes by the name of Phyla, who, when I saw it the first time, I couldn't make out what it was. Phyla, but it's Phyla. And Phyla actually is this Galaxy in the comics. I believe she is part of the 2008 run. And there's a couple other runs that she's in there. Also goes by the name of Quasar. It is known to be the daughter of Mar-Vell, who is a Kree. So I don't know if they're going to tie into all that stuff there with her being the daughter of Mar-Vell, who we met in Captain Marvel. Is she a Kree, or are they going to take creative liberties and kind of do their own thing with this character Phyla, who goes by in the comics a name Quasar, who Quasar is a name that many different characters within the Marvel Cinematic or the comic books have had. I believe Ova had that name at one point and a couple other characters, but essentially you get Dawn the name Quailer because you have the powers and you have these quantum bands, I believe is what I looked up earlier, that gives you that name, which goes back to that scene. You'll notice as the new Guardians are going to take on these creatures, she's like kind of floating in the air and cosmic things going on her wrist, which explains going back to her that the name that she goes by in the comics and those quantum bands. So I'm very intrigued to see what they do with Phyla moving forward and if we're going to see her being aged up, because that brings me to this point here. When will we see these Guardians? When's the next time? James Gunn is doing his own thing now with the DC being co-CEO with Peter Safran. It's been 6 years since the last Guardians. Can we anticipate another 6 years before we see this version of the Guardians again? Will they pop in? I would imagine Kane Dynasty, Secret Wars is probably like a no-brainer, but I think that we'll see a Guardians 4 prior to that film or after those films. who would be the director of a Guardians of the Galaxy 4? Because I would have never picked out a name in a hat of James Gunn directing this great trilogy. So, there was a point in time when he was fired and he wasn't going to direct this new Guardians film. So I'm very curious on who that list of directors that they were. I think at one point Taika's name was brought up, which I'm so glad that didn't. I'm glad that James Gunn was brought back in general, but I definitely didn't want Taika around. Curious to know that short list of directors that was going to place James Gunn back when he was fired. So I can't even think of someone that I would imagine. Joseph Kosinski, the director of, Top Gun Maverick, Lyman, who's done some stuff with sci-fi. So let me know in the comments, guys, who would you like to see direct the Guardians of the Galaxy 4? If you would want to see a Guardians of the Galaxy 4, just them being used every now and then for like big event films like the Avengers. So, man, I'm very curious on when we're going to see this group again. Or if we're going to, because imagine, Adam Warlock's such a big character. I would imagine even if we don't get them as a group, we'll see one or two of the, Guardians. Give me more Rocket. Since you guys did the Genius, which was brilliant, you didn't kill Rocket. Bring him back in some way, somehow, because we know that he was an Avenger at one point during Endgame. So I'm very curious to see what we will get with this new Guardians of the Galaxy. Let me know what you all think about that new group. But that brings us to our official post-credit scene, which, as I had mentioned, the movie ends with Peter going back to visit his grandfather, which he ends up, reuniting with him. And that was a very emotional scene with his grandfather crying and being happy to see Peter again, because Peter didn't think, number one, he didn't think he was alive. And number two, last time he saw his grandfather, he was, a little mean to him in his perspective. But again, Mantis put it in perspective. He just lost his daughter. He just lost his grandson. So it's probably a lot he was going through. At his grandfather's house, they're having cereal, and he's talking about, mowing the lawn of his neighbor, and the neighbor's oldest son watching an older man cut his grass. He's just like, that's weird. Why would he just do that? But meanwhile, as you'll probably notice, the newspaper that the grandfather was reading, it had the headline on there that ties into the holiday special. It said that Kevin Bacon talks about the time he was kidnapped by aliens, which, if you've seen the holiday special, he was kidnapped by Mantis and Drax. So that is the end of the post-credit scene, him just eating cereal and back to mow the grass. But then we get the title card comes up and says, we will get the return of the legendary Star-Lord. So that puts in another big question. When will we see Earthbound Peter Quill on Earth? When will we see him again? Again, the no-brainer, Secret Wars, Kane Dynasty. But then the possibilities are endless as far as Earthbound heroes, ground level heroes. Man, I'm just thinking off top, Peter interacting. There's so many characters I would love to see him interact with. But one that comes to mind, we know Peter is a great thief. And we know another a great thief in the MCU, and that's Scott Lang. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of Quantumanium, I would really be down for just from an actor perspective. I'm a big fan of Chris Pratt. I think he has great comedic time, especially just being a fan of him from Parks and Rec. And then obviously matching that with Scott Lang's Rudd's comedy, I would really think they would be a good match, banter and having some good back and forth. He already met Peter Parker. Obviously, this is the question out there. When Doctor Strange dispel, does it affect people that's not on Earth? Because obviously he doesn't know Peter. He knows of Spider-Man, but he had his mask off when they were on, Titan. So will Peter Quill know Peter Parker? That would be pretty interesting. And it's just, the list goes on and on and on about who he can interact with and maybe come across Nick Fury. And he's been in space, so he has the knowledge of being in space and different coordinates. So let me know in the comments, guys. There's just so many different duos that I would love to see Peter Quill, now who's Earthbound, to interact with. But let me know what you all thought about the mid-credit scene, the post-credit scene, the end of the movie, and just the movie in general. That's going to wrap up this video. I'm going to probably cut this up into the ending and the post-credit scenes. But just for everyone that watched this entire thing, I appreciate you all. This is a fun film. Again, I initially gave it a 3.8 out of 5, but after seeing it the second time, man, it really hit. The emotional beats hit the second time. It gave me more context with things I might have missed the first time. So I'm going from a 3.8. I would bump it up to a 4 to 4.5. A 4 to 4.5. I'm feeling more confident on the 4, because there are just still some things, the Adam Warlock of it all and the uses of the character, some of the comedic beats didn't land to me. I wish Rocket was just more involved in the main journey of the Guardians, and again, just rearranging the motive of why he would have helped the Guardians to find Lila and stuff of that nature, to find out that she's still alive. So I do wish that Rocket was more involved in the narrative. But overall, man, the emotional resonant, really sticks with me. The writing was just so well done. The themes of, again, embracing your imperfections and your flaws and sticking up for others and helping those that need your help, and just the fundamental of the Guardians is being protectors. So I just thought it really stuck the landing, and just really a great trilogy, man. So I'm at a 4 out of 5 for right now. But hey, again, this is the end of the video. Put your score in the comments, your favorite moments, least favorite moments, what worked, what didn't work, what Easter eggs and all the different stuff that you guys find out. Cameos we did. I forgot to mention Howard the Duck was in the film, as well as we got the Yondu making his return. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all are awesome. Before you all leave this epic video, in the meantime, like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You all are awesome. As you can see on the screen now, come and join the community. Check out my original review of this film. Check out all my MCU content, and we'll catch you all on the next breakdown.